Courtney was busy. She was like on off Broadway, like play. Okay,
Regional theater.
she was doing regional theater in Baltimore, but
I did travel.
yeah. Wait, so when did you get back?
Drink alcohol, so that's not the combination. That's not a good combination.
Party.
Traveling and imbibing is not a good combination for puffs.
But in the moment, you looked
lots
good.
of water, lots of.
I bet you've been
waters.
drinking some oil of oregano. You're just dropping in that oil of oregano.
I love that oil of oregano.
Just so everybody knows, Courtney does oil of oregano for anything that's wrong.
Anything that's wrong, and it kills everything, which actually it kills everything. So like you have to also if you're going to take oil of oregano, it kills everything, good and bad. So like you will need to replenish yourself.
Honestly, a little triggering for me coming from my childhood because I was not like allowed to go to the doctor. My mom would be like, oil of oregano, golden seal, garlic in your ears. Like that's how I grew up. So.
I mean, but oil of oregano is real though. It is real. Anytime I'm ever come down feeling I'm coming down with something, it knocks it out.
All right, everybody, you heard it here first. If you need it, go get it.
Get it. The little capsules. Anyways, that's.
Speaking of the body,
it's Taurus season. Oh, it was your birthday, Natalie.
Yeah. Well, there's so much that has happened since we've been on.
Oh my gosh. We were gone.
We were gone. Courtney was gone. Let's be real. I was here, just waiting for her.
That's not true. You were busy.
I was busy.
So busy.
Listen, So I have a great story. There's this girl I grew up with who used to work at Nordstrom when we were in college. And one time I was like, how's working at Nordstrom going? And she was like, busy. And now it's like an inside joke amongst like maybe like 20 of our friends because she was just like, busy. She like mouthed it. And I was like, wait, what? Like you're talking about working at Nordstrom, girl. Like calm down.
I bet you it's so busy there. Are you kidding me?
I know.
Nordstrom is wild. My mom loves Nordstrom.
I mean, it's when you shop there, it feels really nice. It's not like shopping at TJ Maxx.
No, but it feels busy.
It does.
It feels busy. It feels like it gets busy. Yeah.
It gets busy. And listen, Courtney was busy. She was like off Broadway,
Okay. No, I was
like
not off Broadway.
Play.
I was
okay.
Regional theater in Baltimore.
She was doing regional theater in Baltimore, but truly it could be just like
amazing.
Broadway.
No, it was like literally amazing. Like not manifest that though.
How about we manifest that it's going to Broadway?
Manifest that. I love that. But no, I was doing an amazing play in Baltimore and it was
What was it called?
Trinity.
Look it up, everybody.
Look it up. It was so awesome. I had the best time. It was so fulfilling. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But that is why I was not here because I was doing that. And and Natalie was busy as hell. I mean, Natalie was busy. Natalie was literally in the New York Times.
I was in the LA Times. Listen. Now everybody's getting confused. I was in the LA Times, which is just it's a few steps below the New York Times. But I was there January 1st. I have an article out about training. But literally, it's the astrology informed trainer, which, it's like, if that's your vibe, talk to me.
I mean, if you're here, that is your vibe. Oh, wait, are we making the announcement?
Oh, have we? I don't know if we have. If we haven't already, it's out.
Natalie's getting married. To our very own John.
Shocking. Our double Virgo, Pisces moon. I got his ass.
Yeah, so much has happened since we've been, MIA, but we're
Yeah,
back.
yeah. And it was my
And
birthday, Taurus season,
and it was your
five
birthday, Taurus
five.
season. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are.
Here we are, and a big. Should we set the
Yeah, I
stage?
think we should set the stage. Like it's Taurus season, which we love because, well, for many reasons. We love Taurus season, but also it's Natalie's birthday. So there that alone should just be that's a reason alone to love Taurus season. But why do we love Taurus season? What's to love about
Hmm.
this season, Nat? Tell us about your season.
I mean,
Just
to me, it's all about enjoyment. Like, it is springtime, so it's like things are blooming, things are blossoming, things are shifting. It's all about enjoying the kind of like the earthly things in life, I believe. So it's like getting in touch with art, with music, with hanging out with your friends, with eating good food, with taking care of your body. Um, I think about spring cleaning, so I think about like moving energy around. I know Aries is like a lot of that kind of spring energy just physically, but I think Taurus is kind of like settling and doing fine touches in the space. So it's all about that to me. Um, and like leaning into the ease and the santosha, which I'm doing a lot of santosha in my classes right now.
yeah.
What about you? Are you teaching? What are you teaching right now?
What am I teaching? Nothing to do with actually I'm not teaching anything to do with astrology. I My class this week is inspired by Mother's Day, but really inspired by like it's also Mental Health Awareness Month for us. So just how we use the practice to fill up for those of us that do a lot of output, which is not just mothers, but like people that um, are caregivers, creatives. I mean, just anybody, because we're all producers. We all produce in some way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess honestly, it does tie in because you think about Venus, you think about Venus being the sign of creativity and creatives. It's like those of us and nurturers and the nurturer.
Yeah, it's very much
It
relationships.
is relationships, and so it is like, taking care of self because it can be really depleting if we're not, as we're like taking care of others. And so just making sure that we're also filling ourselves up, filling our own cup up, which I think does in some way, I mean, it's kind of a perfect segue into our teaching this week.
It's perfect. I think it's
Um,
perfect.
yeah,
Um,
unintentionally, but yeah,
but that's just the way things go, I think,
it is the way
sometimes.
things go. Yeah.
There's so much that I feel like everything is very, I do want to mention like Mercury goes into Taurus May 2nd, or has gone into Taurus rather, May 2nd. And then there's a Mercury Kazemi on the 14th of
Yeah.
May
Which Kazemi means what, in the heart of the sun. So
in
it
the
means
heart
it's
of the
like
sun.
really, it's like conjunct the sun. So it's really close to the sun. So it has that really beautiful relationship. It's really relational to the sun. Yeah. So
Right.
it's a lot of, so Mercury and sun and moon are all going to be having that Taurus energy around that time.
So I feel like, I don't know, create something, manifest
Hmm.
something. Like I feel like it's a good time to like speak it out loud or journal it or create it. And
Hmm.
then Mars also enters Taurus on the 18th.
Yeah, which I think
And
is really an important thing to pause on.
mm,
Um, just because Mars is the planet of action, and especially as we move forward to really kind of dive into our teaching, this conversation that we have about um, ritual versus routine, practice. I think like Mars and taking action is so much about that, like setting up a practice and that consistency and that really that dedication, that commitment to self. Really, that for me, that is such a Mars coded kind of thing. And it being in Taurus it is so in alignment with what we're talking about today. And
Yes.
so I just wanted to like pause on that because I feel like it really drives our message today, Mars and Taurus.
I love that. Mars and Taurus, it really gets us into our main teaching today, which is all about creating a ritual and a practice to ground ourselves.
Oh, the phone is ringing.
Hold on. Hello? Uh-huh. Hey, Court, the universe called.
What did they say?
Fall in love again and again.
Oh,
All right, thank you. I like
that's
that message.
that's a nice message. Okay. I like that message.
Fall in love again and again.
Who is that again? Who is that?
That's Charlie XX.
Okay, yeah, that's what would that be? Jin. What's behind me?
Gen Z.
Z. Yeah, that's
Gen
Gen Z.
Z.
That's Gen Z.
That's Gen Z. That's
Love a
Gen
Gen
Z.
Z. Love a Gen Z.
I really try to, use the language of Gen Z when I teach if I can. I'm just, I'm like, it's giving Taurus.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes do, but honestly, most of the time I just sound like a really lame old
Millennial.
That's a tangent. We don't have to.
That's a tangent we don't have to go deep into because we are talking about sadhana.
We are talking about sadhana today.
Yeah.
And what is sadhana?
Sadhana is a ritual or a practice, and I mean, in my experience, I believe that it can kind of be whatever you want it to be, whatever you put meaning to, but having a sort of dedicated ritual and practice that you do daily, right? Wouldn't you say daily?
I would say daily. I mean, here's the thing. I would say daily, but I think that for the purpose of this conversation, something that I really
You don't like locking us down.
I don't, because
Yeah.
I think that ideally we are doing something daily. And depending on and we talk about this a little bit later in our conversation with Tracee Stanley. Guys, we get Tracee Stanley on. Can you believe it? But we talk about this as far as like what it means to have a practice as a householder, someone who has to live life, in modern day society, who has to go to work, who has to potentially raise kids, who has a career, who has, these everyday responsibilities. And that just is in some ways having to, I don't want to even use this word because it seems so negative, but like squeeze in a practice. How do we make it so that we are not feeling like we are squeezing in a practice, but that it feels like it's naturally a part of our day to day? And if it's something that doesn't happen every day, as long as it is consistent, I think that that's the most important part. So if it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday type of deal, or if it's a, Saturday, Sunday type of deal, as long as it's consistent, I think that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
Being an everyday practice. That is ideal. But
let's just call it a consistent practice.
I think so. That's for me.
Yeah. And we're also talking about the samskaras, which is like breaking the habits, essentially, right? The habits that we might do, like whether, like for me, my habit would be to like pick up my phone when I have a free moment instead of like closing my eyes and taking 3 breaths, I don't know. What would you say the samskaras are?
Samskaras, I think, are impressions. So I think of them, when I was learning them in Sankhya philosophy, samskaras are like impressions that we acquire along the way, living life that we just from things that happen, So, I'm sorry. You would think of samskaras as breaking habits, yeah?
Well, I'm thinking about them, as habits that we have acquired that we might need to break. Like they're the things that get in the way, sort of our path towards enlightenment. and bliss and meditation, right?
Yeah, so I would say I think of them as habits, but I think of them as like, yeah, because they're things that we've acquired along the way. But they're like, I would think of them as like more like impressions that like we've just. I had a teacher who described it as like if you're driving kind of cross country, they're like the bugs that you acquire on like your windshield in a
Oh my
way.
gosh, I love that
Yeah.
metaphor.
And
That's great.
yeah, so it's just like they're just these, impressions that as we're living life, they just cling to you. So whether they're habits or, little just like almost scar tissue that we start to acquire just from life, whether it's like these things that like I had a bad experience here, or I started to, because of this trauma I started to pick up this
Like biting
negative
my nails or
habit.
something. Yeah.
So it's just these things that we start to acquire, and this is why we honestly practice yoga or ritual or whatever it is, sadhana, so that we can use this practice to kind of clear the windshield, if you will.
Ooh, I
We
love
use
that.
the practice as a way to clean and clear, which is why we're continually practicing, because you don't just clean once and it's gone. Because as we're living, we're continually acquiring.
100%. I mean, it's almost
Yeah,
like if you only brush your teeth like once in a while, like your teeth would not be clean. Like you need to
right.
brush them every day.
Every day,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
I was also thinking like the fall in love again and again piece was like sort of to speak to that. Like we also have to find, I think, the beauty and the relationship with the practice itself more so than just being like, well, I got to wipe these bugs off the windshield. So here
Hmm.
we go. I mean, sometimes that'll get you through, right? But I also think that having something that is deeper and more connected will keep us more connected to our sadhana in a long-term thing.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
that's so interesting that you say that. Let me actually, it's because I was trying to look it up, but it's sutra. I'm always pulling up a sutra.
I love
I'm
you
like,
for
it's sutra,
sutras.
but it's actually Sutra 114 that says that for a practice to be effective, it has to be practiced for a long time. So that it's like the longevity of it consistently. So it doesn't say anything about every day, but it just says it needs to be consistent for a long period of time without interruption. So it's like you have to do it for a long period of time consistently without interruption. And then the last piece of it is with enthusiasm.
Yeah.
So it's like it can't be done because you feel like you feel uh, uh, uh,
Obligated.
obligated to do it. Yeah, it
It's
can't be
not
done
like,
because it's like
otherwise you'll resent it.
it you there, and it doesn't mean that sometimes I'm not like, okay, I gotta do my practice today. Like sometimes I'm not as excited about it, but I'm not doing it because I feel shamed or guilt, or it's like I'm doing it because I know that this is what I want to do. I just am like tired today, or I feel a little sluggish today, or but it's like I still want to do this. I'm not doing it because I feel like I'm pressured, you know?
100%. And I also think that I like to remind people that our practice is not here to fix us. Because I think
Mm.
sometimes we put a lot of pressure on a practice to be like, fix me. And in reality, it's like sometimes you get on your mat and you're like, I am really tired. I am really sad. I am really struggling. It's just like our practice is here to wake us up. And so I think knowing that the practice is there to bring us into awareness might be the thing that gets you enthusiastic. I don't know. I just think it's different for every person.
Yeah.
Um, which
Well,
I think could lead us into introducing our guest. What do you think?
yeah, I think so. Absolutely. The last thing I wanted to say too, I think that ties in the Taurus new moon beautifully and leads us to our guest is that the last little piece for me is that sweetness, because I would say that for me, Taurus is there's like something once when I was teaching about Taurus, I used the word nectar. I don't know
Mm,
why, but I think again, it's that Venus, and it is just that. that sweetness that I keep thinking about when it comes to Taurus, desire for to really in like use all the senses
Hmm.
and to be fully present in this body, in this form, in this life. And for me, I think that that can really get people excited about ritual and about a practice because it can look and feel so many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk to our guest and even, I think when after we this conversation, hopefully you will even be inspired to look deeper into her book. I think the idea of starting some sort of ritual is really exciting and less daunting
I
and adds
love
such
that.
richness. Yeah.
Yeah, adding a little bit of that excitement to what the potential is. It's like
Hmm.
falling in love again and again.
Aha. Very good. Very good. Cool.
So, we do have Tracee Stanley on today. Tracee Stanley is the author of the upcoming book Living Ritual: Infuse Each Day with Purpose and Spirit, and the best-selling books Radiant Rest, Yoga Nidra for deep relaxation and awakened clarity, and the Luminous Self, Sacred Yogic Practices and Rituals to Remember Who You Are. Tracee is the founder of Empowered Life Circle, a sacred community and a portal of practices, rituals, and tantric teachings inspired by more than 30 years of studentship in Sri Vidya Tantra and the teachings of the Himalayan masters. Tracee is devoted to sharing the wisdom of yoga nidra, rest, meditation, self-inquiry, nature as teacher, and ancestor reverence. Tracee holds certificates from Pacifica Graduate Institute in advanced ecotherapy, new thinking, best practices, and emerging modalities, and a certificate in advanced psychology. Tracee is devoted to illuminating the magic and power found in liminal space and weaving devotion and practice into daily life. To find out more about Tracee, go to traceestanley.com. We've also plugged a few of her things that are coming up, like her book release, which is coming out in August, her retreats. And Tracee also has a podcast. So you should get on that. I've been a big fan of Tracee for many years. Her book, Radiant Rest, was kind of the textbook for my yoga nidra training. So that's when I really got into her work. And I don't know, do you have anything else to say before we jump in?
I'm just so incredibly delighted for you all to hear our conversation. It was just, it was amazing. I really don't have any more to add. I'm just excited for you to listen.
Hi,
Hi.
Hello
Tracee.
there.
Hello,
It's good
hello.
to see you.
It's great to have
So nice to
you.
see
Thank
you.
you. Can
Yes,
you actually hear me well? Because I was having an issue with one of my other microphones. You can hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
very
Oh,
well.
perfect. Great.
We can
Yes.
see you, we can hear you, all the things.
I'm happy to be here, so thanks for having me.
Thank you so
Ah,
much for being on.
it is truly an honor to
Oh,
have you.
um, I was introduced to you, Tracee, through my yoga nidra training and your book Radiant Rest. So that's how I learned about you.
oh, thank
And
you. Yeah.
and then I was like,
And
who is this person? I need to listen to every podcast about her and dive in. And then yeah, and so this has been kind of a long time coming for us to have you on, so we're so happy.
I'm so
mhm,
excited. I'm so excited that you can both be here too. I know one of you is
yeah.
traveling, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes. I booked a job, so I literally have a car picking me up in about an hour, and I was like, I'm gonna make it. Like I made my travel plans. So I was like, I have to make this. I cannot miss this. And so I'm
Oh,
so happy that it worked out.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad to be with you both.
See, Courtney's also an actor, so she is
Oh, okay.
filming a
What are
TV
you
show.
Yes.
filming?
I'm filming a show called The Shy. And so I'll be going to Chicago for its series finale.
Oh,
And
it's been on
so
for
I'm
a long
just
time.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
8 seasons.
Yeah.
So shooting the finale, it's like a montage of everybody who's been on the show. So I'm just going for like a day to shoot like a scene. Just,
Oh, that's great.
But
That's nice to be
yeah,
invited back for the season finale. I used to be a
absolutely.
film producer, so I'm very familiar with that world.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah,
know.
we were reading about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we did not know that at all. We were like, oh wow, that is fascinating, actually. And we were actually talking about that. We think it's a good way to kind of get in, but we were talking about that before you got on, of just wondering too how what your if you know your big three, because we are a yoga and astrology
I
podcast,
know. I know.
but just that Aries sun of how that fearlessness of, I think for some people, that being, you know, the stability, or, being kind of attached to the profitability of the film, world, especially as what we were reading, it was expanding and it was becoming more and more successful, if you will. And
Hmm.
then realizing that you just were not in alignment with the direction that it was going.
Yeah.
And you had your yoga studio and practice over here, and you're just like, i I'm just gonna jump, like, regardless of what, tangibly it seems that would be the better choice. Intuitively, this is what feels right. And just speaking, because we're like, what is Aries about Tracee? What is Aries about Tracee?
I
Because
don't
you
know
seem so
what is Aries
grounded.
about me. I think maybe when I have an intention to do something, I have the force of will to kind of power through. Um,
Mhm.
but it's interesting because I don't know my big three. I have no idea.
We have to know. We must know.
Well, you can do a reading right now.
Okay.
What do we
Oh, this
got,
is
Nat?
so exciting.
Drum roll.
Okay, so Aries Sun, Gemini Moon, Taurus
Oh,
Rising.
you
There
called
it
it. You
is.
did. You did call it. You called it.
Oh
Wow,
my
look at us.
gosh.
We literally, look at us, because it's the Taurus new moon episode, and it is
There we go. You called
perfection.
it in.
We
We
called it
did.
in
We
Mercury
did.
and Pisces. That's why you are so dreamy, I think,
In the way
too.
that you communicate, and your writing, and your uh just the way that you inform. Yeah, so
Yeah, like
beautiful.
Pisces is like it takes you in on the journey really well. And I don't
Mm.
know. So I feel like that might be why. And then your rising sign is kind of like where the sky was at the time you were born. So, very much sometimes your rising sign is kind of embodies a little more of like who you are.
Mm.
So, as a
Mhm.
Taurus rising, Taurus meaning fixed earth, like ritual, like getting into this book now, the ritual of life and being connected to the earth. And I think also Taurus is just such a steady sign. I'm a Taurus, so
Okay, then so she's
I'm gonna
already,
I'm gonna sing the
she's loving it.
praises.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean,
Um,
it's ruled by Venus, so it's really, it's creativity, it's pleasure, um, it's relationship. It's so much of what your book is
Yeah.
speaking to,
yeah,
really.
let's talk about the new book, Living Ritual,
Mm.
because we got a chance to read that advanced copy of the book, and there's so many things that I love about this book. First of all, I love that it's so interactive. I love that it's
Mm.
like a sort of like a workbook, and
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
have journal prompts throughout. Yeah, and there's QR codes where you can scan and actually listen to a practice instead of
Hmm.
reading, which
Mm.
Yeah.
feels so peaceful to me.
I'm
Um,
glad that you felt that because I feel like whenever I write something, I imagine the people that are reading it are actually sitting with me. And what are the
Mm.
things that we would be doing if we were together on retreat is that I would be leading you through a practice. I'd be asking you self inquiry questions. There's a way for you to work through the work as a sadhana. as opposed to just something where you just read it and put it down and it doesn't have any lasting impact because it hasn't landed in an embodied place in your body. Um, so, the idea for me is always to connect us to our inner teacher, right? There's
Mm.
sayings in yoga. I think it was Swami Rama who said, if you're not listening to your inner teacher, an outer teacher is not going to do you much good. And so I think that the most powerful teachers I've ever had are ones that actually continue to keep pointing me back to myself, keep pointing me back to how do I get to touch into the true self. And that's all I'm doing in anything that I'm ever offering out into the world.
Mm. I
Well,
really,
well,
really sense that in that book, and in all of the books or teachings that I've listened to with you. Um, and I think that that's so well said. Like a great teacher takes you back to yourself, because
Mhm.
ultimately we don't want to be, obviously we can be guided by others, but at the end of the day, if it's not embodied, then it's not truly felt. So
No, and it also, I
very
think,
cool.
has a tendency to maybe even erode our lack of trust in ourselves because we're continually externalizing our knowing and outsourcing our knowing. And, we could say in the past it's been outsourcing our knowing to other teachers or to other quote unquote experts. And now people are starting to outsource their knowing to AI.
Right.
I was just having this conversation last night. I was out and I was trying to think of something. And I knew that I knew it, but I was struggling. And so it was like a little game of charades almost. I was trying to get the person that was with me to assist me. And I was like, and I was like, we can do this together. And eventually a third party came in and said, why don't you just Google? And I said, I could.
Hmm.
Absolutely. I have my phone. Of
Yeah.
course I do. I said, but I've been trying really hard to avoid just relying on that. And I said, obviously, if it's last resort and I need this information, I absolutely can pick up and I can go in and I can do that. But I think that my brain is eroding a little bit
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
have not been utilizing it as much as I could.
Hmm.
And I would like to really start to rebuild that muscle. Um,
Mm.
because I do believe that I have so much wisdom that I haven't been tapping into, and it will only refill if I continue to revisit.
Yeah.
Um, it's that thing because it's not necessarily someone, but it's something that I keep going to get for the answers.
Exactly. And if you don't tend to your inner wisdom, eventually that relationship starts to become strained, just like it would be with any other relationship that you have, right?
Mm.
And we need to tend to those relationships because, we can think about this idea of a steya, right? It's like we wanted to touch on that. And that is it's definitely been translated as this idea of non-stealing, right? But we can think about this idea of social media and AI, all the things are really stealing our attention. And if we think about what the Yoga Sutras tells us is that pratyahara is this bridge, right? The withdrawal of the senses is this bridge between the inner and outer practices of yoga, starting with the outer practices, the yamas and the niyamas. How do we treat ourselves? How do we treat others, right? The seat, the shape that we're going to take. That pratyahara leads us into those inner practices. So when we are using the gates of our five senses to externalize to all the music and the social media. I mean, I've seen more people in the last probably 4 years with music blasting while they're hiking in the middle of the forest. That is
Yes.
very bizarre.
I don't get it.
I don't know, with no headphones on, right? So it's like
That's
Yeah.
fine if you have your
wild.
headphones, but you're now creating this. The sound is pervading everywhere. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think that is a form of stealing our attention, right? We have to be able to reclaim our attention. We have to be able to
Yeah.
reclaim our attention. Otherwise, I think we lose that connection with our divine intelligence, which is part of what yoga is here to connect us to.
I'd
Absolutely.
like I'd like to
Oh,
go back to this. Oh, sorry. Sorry. We're both like, this is what happens anytime we have a guest. Me and Natalie are just like chomping at the bit.
we're
Because
both really like we're excited children together.
I love
because
to nerd out, so this is great.
so excited. But I'd like to go back if that's okay. And Nat, let me know if you want to stay here for a second before we go back to this.
Mhm.
This conversation or this idea, this concept of sadhana, because it
Mm,
is something that we're talking about in this episode of creating a ritual or practice.
mhm,
And you know, this is essentially what your book is about, and this kind of differentiation between a, a ritual or and a routine,
mhm,
um, a, a ritual and habit, and speaking about like coming back to self time and time again, and what it looks like and how you know it does take practice. It does take practice to not reach for the phone every time.
mhm.
I'm looking for the answer. It does take practice um, to come to the seat, and we start with 5 minutes and move up to 10 minutes and move up to 20 minutes, and um, like what I guess my question would be, um, like what inspires you to or motivates you rather to maintain ritual, um, does a ritual, and you speak a little bit about it in the book, but I'd like to hear it in your own words. Does a ritual stop working, and how do you know when it stops working? um, how do you kind of like maneuver around that, navigate around that? Yeah, I think those are kind of the where I'd like to start if
Hmm.
possible.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great questions. I mean, I can tell you that for me, what I know is that my life is better with ritual. I have more stability. I have more hope. I have more connection to who I know myself to be beyond this name and form. And to me, those are the things that are important. When I notice that I'm falling into habit, and when I'm thinking about habit, I'm thinking about the mindless habits that we do without really thinking. What I notice is those are really life depleting for me. I feel more exhausted. I feel more tired. I feel more distracted. I feel more disconnected. Ritual has the exact opposite effect. It's life enhancing. I feel more connected to those people around me. Those people around me who also see me doing ritual or practicing ritual or some sort of sadhana become more curious about it because they can also notice the changes, right? I think that some of us can think about maybe what we were doing with our time during the early pandemic, right? When it became clear that there was going to be a few weeks or so, as far as we knew, that we were going to be at home. What did we decide to do? Did we sit around and scroll on the phone? Maybe so. That could definitely be true.
Guilty.
But we
Yeah.
also might have decided to look into some things that we'd always wanted to have the time to do, that we never had the time to do, or we wanted to learn something new. And so, what I started to notice during the pandemic was this, um, first of all, being in community together was really stabilizing. And having something that we could do together as a community in ritual or a long sadhana. And, I think that was the first time for a lot of people where they did a 40-day sadhana because it was the first time that they had a chance to do and they had the time to do it. And after that 40-day or 30-day sadhana was over, it was like, oh, I can compare how I felt before I did the sadhana to how I feel now. And that I think is the thing that gives you the motivation to continue or to pick
Hmm.
up another healthy, life affirming ritual. Um,
Mhm.
to your other question, just about habit and routine, I mean, I think that routine lies on the edge a little bit of what could be we could consider ritual, right? But the routine is okay. Maybe part of my routine is I pour my morning coffee, and I do that as part of my routine because I love it. But if I can add something sacred to it, if I can actually create a sacred habit that then becomes a ritual, and I can start to offer a blessing of gratitude as I'm hearing the water boil, as I'm pouring the cup of coffee for myself, that changes everything. If I can decide that I'm going to sit in silence just for 5 minutes every morning with my morning cup of coffee, that will reshape your entire day.
I
So
love that.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna piggyback off of it because that was one of the things I loved about the book is that you talk so much about the micro ritual versus, I think sometimes people think, oh my gosh, if I how will I have time to do a
Hmm.
ritual? How
Hmm.
can I possibly add, especially people in the you talked about householders,
Yeah.
like the different phases of life and people that are holding a house and it's like you are busy and that's the
Mhm.
reality. I love how practical some of the micro rituals are that you offered. If you want to talk more about that too, just to go
Yeah.
further.
In this busy life, we need micro rituals. We're not
Mhm.
living on a mountain in a cave somewhere, right? Where
Too
someone is
bad.
bringing us chai and we can do our sadhana all day, every day. And I think, we can think about these ideas around the Yoga Sutras that tell us to do something at the same time, in the same way, with consistency in the same place, right? We know that there's power in that, but there's also power in really looking for the transitions of time that allow us to drop in, even if it's just for 5 breaths, even if it's just for one mantra, even if it's just to watch the light as it's rising in the morning or setting in the evening. So those micro rituals are based on sandhyas, which is part of Hindu philosophy that talks about these different junctures during the day that are considered to be the most sacred and the most potent for divine practice, and to be able to be in silence. We know that if we practice before, a couple hours before the sun rises, we have that silence of even just before the birds are even awake, right? There is something very special about that time. But there's other times during the day when the sun is at its highest, right? When we're thinking about there's like the most activity, like we're maybe that's the time of day when we're usually like the most crazed to get things done, that you can pause during that time and you can think about an intention that you have because the fire is high both in the body and in the sky, to use that to activate an intention. So the micro rituals for me are for the householder who really wants to begin to weave, right? I love this idea of weaving. It's like, how can I, instead of sitting for 1 hour, because I don't have time to sit for one whole hour and practice, how can I weave 5 minutes here, 10 minutes here, another 5 minutes here, another 10 minutes there? And then by the end of the day, I've done a practice that has been weaved for 30 minutes, right? That practice of 30 minutes of weaving micro rituals together or micro practices together is no less potent than sitting for an hour, because most of that time of the hour, your mind is moving anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're in
Yeah.
samadhi for an entire hour every time you practice.
Right.
The mind is busy. It takes time for you to settle into the meditation. And
Yeah.
maybe you get 1 minute of pure, absolute, supreme bliss in that 1 minute and that 1 hour, right? And if we can think about the same thing as we weave through the day, I think it could be life changing for us for sure.
Mm. I have a 4-year-old and she wakes up at 7 every day. Well, we have a little like clock that tells her you can, come out or and I was finding that because I'm not a morning person, so I would sleep until the very moment where she would get up and it was just kind of like my day would start with a child before she was 4, even younger. So I started setting my alarm at like 6:45. Now I get up a little bit earlier because I'm just used to it. And I would open my curtains and I now lay and I just have 15 minutes. So I get up, I lay for like a few minutes, I do my gratitude practice, and then I can make up my bed and I can get up and I can start my coffee all alone,
Hmm.
but without my toddler.
Yeah.
And so when I was reading that, I was just like, oh, I do that. Like I
Yeah.
have my little morning moment, and it really it's a game changer for the way that I start my day.
Hmm.
I feel just and when she gets up, I'm just like a completely different parent. I'm a completely different person. Um, it really it's like I start with so much more abundance, I think, because
Mm.
I yeah, I have an abundance now of energy and gratitude and love and joy as opposed to starting already feeling like I'm at a deficit.
Mm.
That's right. Because you've already filled your cup,
Hmm.
right? You've
One of the
already taken
things
time.
I was going to say, one of the things that really stood out in the book too was how you yourself were noticing that you were rushing all the time. And I forget the name of the practice that you did where you were going back to journal and
Yeah.
observe
Mm.
to figure out where did this come from. And you
Yeah.
traced it back to being 8 years old and hearing about somebody who passed away and your mom said they ran out of time.
Yeah. It was
I thought
a
that
little
was,
girl in our church. Yeah.
yeah,
That was a very profound moment. And that practice is called vichara. And
Vichara.
vichara
Okay.
is another way of saying self-inquiry, but it's the
Mm.
idea of deliberating on something until you get to the root of it.
Hmm.
And that is a practice that we can all benefit from because in the book I do talk about at the time I was a film producer, and I remember the moment I was running around my apartment like a crazy person, you know, trying to grab all the things. And I was like, wait a second, why am I rushing? I don't need to rush. And then I started to think about all the times when I was rushing and not needing to rush. And it was just tracing back to that moment of hearing my mom say, oh, poor Felicia, she just ran out of time. And I thought, well, if this popular, really pretty girl could run out of time, then I definitely don't have enough time. And that weaved itself in my life until I realized it. And I was in my 30s when I realized that.
Wow. I do. What keeps coming to me every time that like every single story that you're mentioning and hearing Courtney talk, I just keep hearing like that these practices are empowering. It's like taking something back. I think that we may have lost, whether it's because of our lifestyles and the way life has moved faster, and it keeps coming back to me about like how our ancestors kind of intuitively knew that ritual was important. I even think about just the practices of yoga, like yoga nidra and all of the practices that we do, asana, everything, even though the science wasn't, it wasn't studied scientifically the way things are now. It's almost like people knew back then intuitively that we needed ritual or that we needed time or we needed practices of abundance and
Mm.
gratitude and also even
Yeah.
relationships. Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Natalie, that reflection, because I feel like our ancestors knew and understood that there were seasons and that these
Mm.
seasons were going to continue because they could look back into the past and they could know that the light was going to, diminish at a certain season. They knew that the weather was going to change in a certain season. They knew that the plants were going to grow better in a certain season. And so they were intricately connected to Earth, right? All of the indigenous cultures were connected to Earth. And they had many rituals that were there to help appease what they thought were the gods, right? To appease nature, to pray for what they needed, to pray for protection, to pray for food, to pray for the abundance. Um, there were things that were happening that were unexplainable, like solar eclipses, that must have been very frightening. And they had rituals for those times as well, right?
Mhm.
And so we've become not only disconnected from ritual, but we've really become disconnected from our relationship with Earth, right? We are
Mm.
in this extractive relationship with Earth, thinking that humans are at the top of the hierarchical, pyramid of all of the world and all of the dominion over everything. And that's just not the case. So I think that what happens when we tune more into ritual is that we start to notice these natural junctures in time during the day. We start to notice these natural spaces where we can choose, right? We have a choice. We can become more present in those places. We can fill those places with gratitude. We can fill those spaces with our prayers, with our practices, with our rituals, or we can choose to check out and scroll. And there's
Mm.
really not a judgment for me about like we're going to choose to scroll or we're going to choose to offer gratitude, because the forces at play right now are so powerful that want to pull us away from our own knowing, from our own connection with nature and our connection with each other. It's not really a surprise that we have this epidemic of loneliness happening, right?
Hmm.
Because it's been designed for this. If we are not connected to each other, we're going to be connected to a device or something else. So I really feel like um, ritual has a way of connecting us back to what's important and to what's real and to what is all around us. And it just happens
Hmm.
if you practice. If you notice the sunrise, if you notice the sunset, just simple things, then all of a sudden you might start to notice the elements. You start to notice the
Mm.
wind, and you start to wonder, like, what did my ancestors know about the wind? Yes, we know that
Yeah.
wind is purifying and cleansing, but if you do, you go into a deep dive and you realize, oh, well, my ancestors in West Africa had this Orisha named Oya, and what was she about? And then it leads you into this different world that then continues to connect you deeper to yourself and to your ancestors.
Would you say that, in a way, one of the reasons that you offered this book was because this observance that you're having about this disconnection that just keeps coming up and up and up? Do you feel like your book, you kind of wrote it to invite people back to themselves, or do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, what I would say, Natalie, is you're extremely astute. um, I think every book that I've written so far, I'm constantly looking for antidotes to what I see,
Hmm.
right? To what I see in the collective. And not only what I see, but what I sense coming.
Hmm.
That's all. It's all. I'm always looking, and not to say like I'm prophesizing anything. It's really just about recognizing patterns and seeing where things are going and knowing that yoga has these antidotes. Yoga is a science that's thousands of years old, so I'm not making anything up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's all I'm doing is offering these practices that I have learned and have been so fortunate to receive from teachers over the years that I know work because I've done them, I've taught them, I've sat with people and we've done them together or they've done them on their own and they've come back to report this is what's happened. So these
Hmm.
practices are time tested.
Right. Yeah.
And
Like
so
it's
yes,
it's right there for us.
that is the answer. The answer is the two things that I saw happening pre-pandemic was the need, because I started writing Radiant Rest in 2019, was the need for deep rest. And that came from being a yoga teacher and a yoga nidra facilitator and watching how we were so attached to the asana, to the vinyasa, to the strength,
Oh
to
my
the
gosh.
handstand. And that what also happened when we couldn't do the handstand or we couldn't do the thing, right? And then when it came time for shavasana, this was a period of time where people would just get up and leave the class, you know, or they would look
Yes.
at their
Yes.
phone during shavasana. And so what I was seeing was an inability to be able to actually rest. And so when I was asked to write this book for Radiant Rest, at first I was like, no, there's this book and there's that book and this other person's writing a book. That's a whole different story. And then eventually I was like, okay, I need to write this book from my perspective of what I know about Yoga Nidra as a frequency, right? Not as something beyond the technique, but the actual state of consciousness, or the frequency of Yoga Nidra as I understand it.
Mm.
Um, and from that, what I started to notice during the pandemic, as I mentioned before, is us leaning into ritual. And then once everything was quote unquote back to normal, that there was some abandoning of the things that were actually helping us, the things that were actually waking us up. Instead of going into a deeper dive, it was kind of like, okay, well, that happened. And now I'm back to, and then I was talking to students and they were saying, well, I don't understand. Why did I leave this thing behind that was so healthy for me, that was so empowering for me? How did that happen? And so, yes, I'm always looking to try to meet the moment when we're going to need the moment. And I feel like the moment is here again, especially with the proliferation of AI and trying to move towards AGI, that, the soul is the biggest competitor. Your soul is the biggest competitor to AI.
I'm so glad this book is here because we need it. We really
Yeah.
do. Like I believe more and more and more we need these practices. Courtney pulled a quote about just going into yoga nidra a little bit because we are, or the new moon rather, because we are releasing this episode for the new moon in Taurus,
Yeah.
which just is so fitting because you're a Taurus rising. Everything is
I love
right.
that.
It's that intuition. No, we were like, we got to get her on for the Aries new moon, and then I was like, maybe she has a Taurus placement. And here we
Great, I
are.
love it.
No, she loves this, loves this. But it wasn't necessarily a quote, but we were talking about, you were talking about reclaiming the forgotten ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And you were speaking about the new moon, as a time of endings and beginnings, a time for introspection, making offerings, honoring ancestors, and beginning and closing rituals. And just using this new moon or using a new moon as a time to choose to reintegrate the practice that was forgotten into into your daily life. Or I think what I took from it is like choosing to reintegrate that forgotten ritual or to intentionally release it and let it go,
Yeah.
but to make make an intentional choice about it, right? Instead of kind of like, and what in a way it's speaking to what you were just talking about of like how people, they we leaned on ritual at the beginning of the pandemic, and
Mm-hmm.
then as soon as things started to get back to normal, they just kind of fell away. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that it was an intentional like, oh, I don't, this isn't working any longer, this
Mm-hmm.
doesn't serve me any longer. They just kind of fell away because we just kind of went back to life.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about this piece in your book of the forgotten ritual.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
why is it forgotten? Is it just because we just kind of went back to the world? And so this new moon maybe being an opportunity to come back to this ritual that did hold us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
did hold
Mm-hmm.
us and
Yeah.
and and feed us, and using this as a time to start to reintegrate it. So I don't know, I just think this is kind of a perfect time to think about those rituals that we that have been like lost in a way. Um,
Yeah. And we have a lot of lost rituals, right? We have, I'm going to say forgotten rituals, the ones that were like, wait, when was it that I stopped doing that thing? And it's been like a
yeah.
year now and I haven't done it and it was really helping me, right? And then there's also the abandoned ritual. There's the ritual that you
Oh.
abandon because the teacher hurt you or you've
Mm,
learned that the teacher was not trustworthy. And so now all of a sudden you abandon the mantra practice, you abandon the practice that they gave you because there's hurt attached to it, right? And so somewhere there needs to be a closing, right? Or there needs to be a reclaiming of, yes, that
mm,
was a practice that was really helping me. And yes, this is a teacher that has caused harm. Is there a way, or is there another teacher, or can I reclaim this for myself in a way where it becomes mine? Because any practice
mm.
that you're getting from a lineage teacher, it comes from the lineage. It's not really coming from the teacher.
Right.
That's so good. Oh, that is so good.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
kind of brings us right back to that empowerment to go back to kind of trusting yourself that you were talking
Mhm.
about
Yeah.
and listening to yourself and being the teacher that guides you back to yourself, which is so, I think it's so beautiful. There's so many things that I would love to talk about with you, but we also want to watch our time because we don't want to take up too much of your time.
Oh, thank you.
I was wondering, is there anything else that you want to leave us with? Whether it's, I know that you have such beautiful retreats, which by the way, Courtney and I are always texting each other. We're like, could we make this? Could you make this happen?
No,
Um,
yeah, I know.
for like over a year. Do you want to share about your retreats? When is the book officially releasing? All of
Yeah, thank you
that.
for
Yeah.
asking. So the book officially releases on August 25th, and it's available for pre-order now. I am going to be doing a very special 16-day ritual practice of micro rituals where we're going to meet every day for 16 days from new moon to full moon for about 15 to 20 minutes in the morning to do micro rituals up until the book is released. So that's just kind of something if you pre-order the book, and I don't know when this podcast is releasing, but it should be up on my website in the next week or so. You can join for that. And then you can just find me on Instagram. You can find me on my website, which is traceestanley.com. And all the things are always there. Yeah.
Yes. And you also have a podcast too, which I
I
also
do. I have
listen
a
to.
podcast
Yeah.
called Radiant Rest Podcast, and it's a podcast that goes in all different cycles between resting during the winter, and now it's kind of in its active mode. And I just love interviewing people and talking to them about their practices of rest, practices of dreaming, practices of ritual, and you can find that everywhere podcasts are around. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. I am curious, do you still have, other than your rituals that you're already implementing, do you still practice asana? Do you still practice yin? Do you do any of those types of things for
Yeah,
yourself?
I love this question. So I do a combination of a few asana practices. I'll do a few sun salutations a day, along with a practice called joints and glands, which is also known as exercise without movement. And then I also do a few Tai Chi forms, and then I lay down and practice Yoga Nidra.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love.
What a delight. Thank you so much for taking your time to share and chat with us.
Thank you. Thank you
This
so
has
much for
been,
having me. It's been an
wow.
absolute delight to be with you both.
Thank you,
I'm
Tracee.
so happy that I moved everything so I could be here. This made my day. This made my week. This made my month.
Oh,
Wow.
thank you.
Thank you
It
so
all
much.
worked out,
It did.
which is
It
nice.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tracee. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Take good care.
Bye. Thanks. The Universe Called podcast with Natalie Burtney and Courtney Sauls. Theme music by Chit Cray, Studio Inertia. Special thanks to Donna and Robbie Falks.